Martin Luther King said in his famous commencement speech to the graduating students at Oberlin College in 1965 that the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And I believe that's true. I think he was right. I believe that not only because I want it to be true, but because reading history tells me that it in fact is true. So what could be better than to be part of that historical struggle to move us from an era, or all of preceding history, where unspeakable crimes, unspeakable suffering was regarded as normal, to a future where every man, woman, and child in the world can have the basic necessities, can have enough to eat, an education, a clean and safe environment. I think this is where we're headed, and of course we're not going to get there overnight. We're not going to get there during my life, but down the road we all need to be able to look at this and say, yeah, that's where we're going, and history's on our side. And I really believe that's true. I would say really what probably made the greatest impression on me was not so much what was being taught through the formal process, but the community that I was part of by being a part of the Unitarian Church. So the grown-ups who in their own ways set an example, and also the other kids, my peer group, who were kids who often, like me, were kind of coming of age, coming of political awareness, social self-consciousness in the 60s, at a time when civil rights, the war in Vietnam, environmental quality, all of these issues were being lifted up on the agenda and made us realize that we had something to do here, that we couldn't just sit back and watch TV and whatever, that there were things that really needed to be addressed. And being around others who had that same sense of engagement and commitment, I think that was really important at that formative, those teenage years. And there was an organization then, I think it now has passed from the scene, called LRY, or Liberal Religious Youth, which was the Unitarian sort of youth groups, which meant that we not only had an LRY group that met at the church, but there were LRY conferences and events and interchanges with kids from other places around the state and around the region. And so those were really fun, and also kind of heartening, in the sense that it made you feel that it's not just you against the world, right? These are problems that nobody is going to solve working on their own. They're problems that we're going to solve together. And that sense of being together and being part of a movement really was something that that I first really got that sense of when I was, in my teenage years through LRY. And it's just kind of continued on ever since. You find groups of people who are interested in working on the same issues, and you get that sense that you're not alone in this, and I think that's really important to all of us. I remember the night that Martin Luther King was assassinated. We were down, our LRY group was down in a meeting in somebody's home in what now would be called inner city Detroit, a predominantly African-American community. And we were, talking about civil rights issues and about trying to bring people together and get across the segregation lines, which Detroit, one thinks of it as a northern city, and somehow there's this image that racism is a bigger problem in the South than in the North. But I want to tell you, the North has plenty of racism and degrees of segregation that I would guess Detroit, when I was growing up at least, is one of the most segregated places you can find in this country, right? So we were down there talking about that problem and what we could do. There were initiatives that were called open housing to try to break through the overt discrimination that happened in housing markets, where real estate agents would refuse to show an African American a house in certain places because there was whites only. It's amazing to think that that was reality not that long ago. Again, that's when I was, a teenager. So these were the kinds of things we were talking about. And then, as we were there, that was when King got killed, and the cycle of violence then accelerated, right? So these were experiences that I felt, were not just happening on television. I felt like, I mean, knowing the real people is, I think, a really important motivational factor. If all of your commitments are derived from intellectual thought, I'm not saying that's unimportant, right? I'm a professor, but it's actually knowing real people whose lives are being impacted by the problems you're addressing that I think gives you the really the energy to get up every day and go back and do it.